The fire that killed my mother when I was 5 never happened. I am 32 now, and the house that burned down is still standing. But the journal I found in the attic says something that makes my blood run cold. I am your sister. My mother, Clara, died in a house fire that claimed 12 lives including her husband when I was 5. The official report says she was alive, but the house was destroyed. I never saw her again after the fire. Today, in the dusty attic of her house, I found this journal. It's written in her hand, but the first line is a question: who am I? I am Maya, and this journal says I am not the child of Clara. I am her sister. The journal's ink is faded, as if written in the shadows of a past that refuses to be forgotten. The journal's ink is fading, as if written in the shadows of a past that refuses to be forgotten. I trace the words with my finger, the paper rough against my skin. Clara isn't the name I thought I knew. The fire report said her husband died in the blaze too, but I never heard the details. This journal reveals a truth that shatters my understanding. I am not Clara's child. I am her sister. The fire that killed my mother when I was 5 wasn't the end. The journal speaks of a brother who died in the same fire. My mother was alive that night. But she never came home. The house burned down, yet the truth remains buried. I need to find out who I really am before I lose myself in this nightmare. The woods behind the house hold the answer. I packed a bag and walked into the trees, the scent of pine and damp earth filling my lungs. The fire had burned the house, but the woods remain untouched. I found a stone marker near the old creek, Elena, 1957. Elena? That was my mother's name in the journal. My sister. The fire report said Clara died in the blaze, but this marker shows a different name. I sat on the bank, the water cold against my hands. The journal whispered, the truth is buried in the woods. I thought about the brother who died in the fire. Was he the one who raised me? Why did my mother leave me? The woods held the answer, but the silence was deafening. I needed to find out who I really am before the truth consumes me. My mother had a brother. The journal mentions him, but the fire report says he died too. I searched the house for clues, finding only a single photograph: my mother, a young man with her, and a child. The child in the picture looked like me. That night, I dreamed of a fire, but the flames were blue. I woke up in the attic, the journal in my hands. The blue fire was my mother's brother. He died in the house fire, but the report says he survived. I ran to the woods, following the blue light, but the trail vanished. My mother was alive that night. She was my sister. The fire that killed her was never the truth. The woods hold the answer to who I am. The blue fire was my mother's brother. I found the blue fire in the woods, a faint glow under the trees. It was the same color as the fire that killed my mother. The fire report said it was a house fire, but this was different. My brother had died in the fire, but he survived. He was the one who raised me. The journal says, I am your sister. I am Maya, but I am also my mother's sister. The fire that killed her was never the truth. I ran toward the blue light, but the trail vanished. The woods were silent, the only sound my heartbeat. My mother was alive that night. She was my sister. The truth was buried in the woods behind the house. Someone is watching me. I heard footsteps in the woods, but the trees were silent. I turned, and there was no one. My heart pounded. The journal whispered, you were always mine. I sat down, the ground cold against my back. The fire had burned the house, but the woods held the truth. I thought about the brother who died in the fire. He was my protector. My mother was alive that night. She was my sister. The fire that killed her was never the truth. I need to find the truth before I lose myself in the woods. The journal's last line, you were always mine. I read it over and over, the words burning in my mind. My mother was my sister. The fire that killed her was never the truth. The brother who died in the fire was the one who raised me. The woods held the answer, but the truth was buried deep. I walked back to the house, the journal in my hand. The fire had burned the house, but the truth remained. I needed to find my sister before the truth consumed me. The woods hide a path. I followed the blue light deeper into the forest, the trees closing in. The path was hidden behind a curtain of ivy. I climbed over the barrier, my hands bleeding. The blue light grew stronger, but the path vanished. I found a cave, cold and dark. Inside, I saw a photograph, my mother, my brother, and me. The fire had burned the house, but the truth remained. My mother was alive that night. She was my sister. The fire that killed her was never the truth. The cave holds the truth. I entered the cave, the air cold and damp. On the wall, I found a sketchbook with drawings of the house and the woods. The blue fire was my brother's. He died in the house fire, but he survived. My mother was alive that night. She was my sister. The fire that killed her was never the truth. The sketchbook showed a family, my mother, my brother, and me. The house burned down, but the truth remained. I need to find my sister before I lose myself in the woods. My sister is alive. I saw her standing in the cave, the same blue fire in her eyes. Her name was Elena. The fire that killed my mother was never the truth. The fire report said she died, but she survived. She was the one who raised me. The journal said, "I am your sister." I ran toward her, tears streaming down my face. "Elena," I said, "I thought you were dead." She smiled, and the blue fire in her eyes glowed brighter. The truth was buried in the woods, but we were never apart. The house burned down. I stood in the ashes, the fire still glowing in the distance. My mother was alive that night. She was my sister. The fire that killed her was never the truth. The blue fire was my brother. He died in the house fire, but he survived. We were never apart. The house burned down, but the truth remained. The woods held the answer, and it was in the journal. I am Maya, but I am also my mother's sister. The fire that killed her was never the truth. The truth is not what I thought. The fire that killed my mother was never the truth. The house burned down, but the truth remained. My mother was alive that night. She was my sister. The blue fire was my brother. He died in the house fire, but he survived. We were never apart. The journal said, "You were always mine." I am Maya, but I am also my mother's sister. The fire that killed her was never the truth. The woods hold the answer, and it was in the journal. The fire never burned. I stood in the woods, the journal in my hand. The fire that killed my mother was never the truth. The house burned down, but the truth remained. My mother was alive that night. She was my sister. The blue fire was my brother. He died in the house fire, but he survived. We were never apart. The journal said, "You were always mine." I am Maya, but I am also my mother's sister. The fire that killed her was never the truth. My sister is waiting. I walked into the house, the journal in my hand. Elena stood in the doorway, her eyes filled with the blue fire. "I've been waiting for you," she said. The fire that killed my mother was never the truth. We were never apart. I held her close, tears streaming down our faces. The house burned down, but the truth remained. We were sisters, and the fire never burned.